They've jammed you from the start, mate. No, you got as soon as you came on, they jammed you. Can't hear you, mate. It's like you don't have to shut you down. As soon as you came live, they shut you down. No, it's just that you can't watch it, mate. It looks like I don't know if you've because the picture of Matty on the front of your thing, they've just jammed you. As soon as you went live, the first word out of your mouth was jammed.
Okay, let's have a look now. How's that? Has that just improved? How does that sound? Sound test. Sound test 1, 2, 3. So no, good. Better, much better. Okay, team, for those that are watching right now, all we want to do is say quick call out to those, say thank you to all of those people in Townsville in harm's way at the moment with the cyclone. I don't even know what its name is because I don't watch mainstream media anymore, to tell you the truth, which brings us to tonight and what we're about. Thank you very much, Buckaroo, for letting us know that they'd clamped down on our audio. This is what happens when you're dealing with YouTube, the algorithm, etc. There's certain topics it don't like. Wait a sec. All good now. Good now, says Bucko. Thank you very much, Bucko. Doing his job. Well done. That spanner isn't to say he's a dickhead in comments. It's there to say that he keeps the channel rolling. Guys and girls, you see it there. My experience of Matty, the big fella, 3RR, old faithful, also a contractor, also owns a security business, a father of 4, great dude. He let me into his dungeon, where his business is run out of. And I went to his studio. And that was after weeks of trying to get this together, guys and gals, by the phone. And then trying to marry up times while I've been sick, etc., in between his international traveling. So we got together. We went to breakfast. We met. He was prompt. Big man. Very big man. And then we went to the dungeon, so to speak. Fantastic setup. I was actually jealous. It was like podcast studio porn. And then from there, we just slowly got into it. And when that was all over, there was a swapping of gifts. I gave him some alcohol I've never tasted and a shirt that may not even fit him, but he can gift that to someone if he wants to. But I couldn't let him put the podcast up today and not show my sincere thanks for him allowing me to come up, use his time to come out with today's podcast. We're going to play a little bit of that now, but it's only snippets because I don't want to steal his thunder. Go to Spotify, listen to Matty. The link is below in remarks, and you can go to Zero Limits on Spotify. Right. So we're going to look at a couple of things before we put his video on, just so you know that I'm not wasting your time. We're getting ready to play that. So Zero Limits, and he is the CEO of that. What I love about Zero Limits is the fact that it's not just about a 3RAR infantry fella, who's a former paratrooper giving a voice to infantry. That's not the case. He gives it to police. He gives it to special forces. He gives it to international. He gives it to females. Now, if you've got a story to tell, then he's happy to give you the space and let you fall on the sword if it turns out you're a dickhead. And I don't even think for a moment that if you went on there and started to become an imposter, that he'd actually let you go and say, can you take that down? Can you retract that? No, thank you, mate. Come in here, come prepared, and be willing to stand on your own 2 feet and talk about and discuss the soapbox, the town square. What was your life? What defines you? And what would people like to hear or want to know about yourself? Yeah. We've got Daz there. Fantastic to have him here. We've got KK. And Daz, I hope you're getting the rains, mate. I really want to hear that farm of yours down south in the land of the single mums is fertile and kicking goals. Julius Caesar, great conversation just before. I would have loved to have spoken to you longer, but naturally we had to jump on here. And some really great questions there. All good now, says Daz, the moderator. We've got Wasp from the working well now. Excellent. We've got Mitchell Hooper. G'day, Kaz. Good to have you here there, Mitchell. And we've got Jesse Bell. G'day, Kaz. Back shortly, brother. So I have to catch you this time. You're looking and sounding well. Thanks, mate. Dry as an un, says Daz. That's unfortunate for his cattle. No good at all. We've got Patel here. Hi, Kaz. Love your video, mate. Had my induction done yesterday. Your induction, does that mean you've done your enlistment? Let us know, Senor Patel. We need to know. Let's listen to a little bit of this before I put on a second video. And so you understand is where we got to this point where I was able to go on Zero Limits podcast. Before we do so, consider this: the importance of public speaking in the soapbox and the town square without quarantine speech. We all know that left-leaning people, those that scream for tolerance, are the most intolerant. Do not kibosh people's speech. Let them talk, regardless if you like the message or not, and either rebuttal them, or defeat them in a calm, reasoned debate, and critique, but let them actually go up there and make a fool of themselves, or actually convince you to change your mind in an aspect. And that's the way life should be. A man should always understand, but that many a man has had his nose broken by his own flapping tongue. That is a true thing too. And while we're doing this, I want you to think of this. What subject defines your life that you could talk about for long format? Right? That's important. If any one of these people were about to let you on. So the Purpose Podcast, and what is your favorite podcast? Is it Zero Limits, which is mine, because they're dealing with people that, one, I know a lot of them, right? But also I love the way Matty delivers, very much like Sean Ryan. You might be like True Crime. You might like JRE, Joe Rogan. You might like Dan Carlin with Hardcore History. It's up to you. But I've completely replaced music with learning via podcasts, and it's fantastic. Enlisting done in December. It was my induction from the RIC. Okay, I'm reserved from the Recruit Induction Centre. Well done, mate. Dave D, there he is. Legends, and he's a legend himself. He's the amputee. Dave D, welcome to the trenches, mate. Peppers, I'm not that important. My life would bore most people. Well, the whole thing, Senor Peppers, is I don't want your life to be boring. I want people to go into something, and too often we hear, like Julius Caesar when we were speaking earlier, and we're talking about infantry. What qualification would it give someone? Why would someone want to do that? Are they happy with the pay? What qualifications it give you? I'll tell you now. The infantry corps gives you so many qualifications, but people don't understand the qualifications it gives you, the doors that it opens that can get you poached are from other like-minded people in the intelligence community, in the federal agencies, whether it be international work. You need to be a good public speaker, for starters. You need to be able to communicate. Your skills need to be tight. You need to have a reputation. They don't let the people that tell you that infantry is nothing, they don't let them into those jobs. They don't even qualify to go and enlist for those and have the secrecy clearances, etc., to show a career that already vouches for, are you good enough to be on that team? Because they can check you out real fast. What do I got here? Rural Hunter. I was going to ring you a couple of days ago, but I have been flat out with kids' school holidays. Rural Hunter. He's been here for 29 months. Do the maths on that one, team. That's more than 2 years. He's in the military now, and he's a great guy, and he's part of our inner circle. We just don't get to talk very often. I really appreciate it. I want the members of the channel, and that's the people that come up as green, as you can see there, to come up with an idea of what we should do with the funds that are raised by people's membership that is separate to Patreon, because I'd like to do something that becomes another project of itself that we can represent our channel in a way that makes others very, very happy. Nicole, I wake every moment at the moment staring at the Skippy badge on the wall. Well, bam, mine's just there. Excelente. So you're back at home, are you, mate? Okay, that's another conversation, but that's a good one. Dwayne, g'day, mate. How you going? Hi, Kaz, mate. So great to see you. All right. And it's great to see you too. And thank you very much for your support, your kind words, your comments, and the support that you've given me in my sickest days, mate. Your comments got me through. Thank you very much. I hope the sun is warm on your back and the breeze is cool in your hair, if you have it. So let's listen to a little bit of what we got with the podcast. And we're just going to play it from the start, just as an introduction, so you get to understand the way Matty communicates. He's a great guy. He leads by example. He's a rough and tumble kind of bloke, and he's not boastful. He's not braggadocio. He doesn't sit on ego. He opens the floor for you and makes you feel very, very welcome.
Use the code ZeroLimits15, all in caps, and get yourself a pair.
Good start.
It's time for the Zero Limits podcast, hosted by Australian veterans. Chatting with high-charging humans with hectic stories from around the world. We'll give you the motivation to take on whatever life throws at you and the kick to complete any goal you set your mind to. Let's go.
Yeah, it sounds a bit better than mine, doesn't it?
Bush Ranger 7-1, try to contact you, over. Bush Ranger, this is not 3 Bravo.
Zero Limits listeners, on today's Zero Limits podcast, here in the studio in Newcastle with a Nova Castrin. Now, he grew up on the Stockton side of things, beautiful part of Newcastle. However, probably could be better. It hasn't changed in the last probably 150 years. Exactly the same. Same people still living there too. But he is a YouTube veteran. You may have seen his YouTube videos. It is called In the Trenches with Kaz. His name is Dean Caswell, and he's been part of multiple podcasts I've had on. Obviously, a lot of guys from 2RR. Now, just before I introduce him, let's just have a quick listen to who this guy is. The way he used to act, I wouldn't say act, who he was in the battalion. And as we know, especially for a lot of us infantry guys, a lot of sergeants all got their own individual character, is what I love about it. Outside of officers, because officers, they're all the same.
Dave D.
They never change. But here we go.
Yeah, mate. Well, I don't know about imitate him because he's an intense dude. I wouldn't want him to think I'm taking the mick out of him. But one of the first blokes that we were introduced to when we got to 2RL was then Sergeant Dean Caswell, who opened up with words to the effect of, I am the best sergeant in the best battalion, in the best regiment, in the world, which makes me the best infantry sergeant in the universe. Don't get any tattoos of Asian shit or dragons. You're not Chinese and dragons aren't real. Welcome to 2RL. Words to that effect, mate. I'm paraphrasing. If Kaz listens to this, it's an iconic bit of my career, and for those of us who heard it, a legendary tale. So yeah, no disrespect, mate. You're a legend. Much appreciated for the laughs.
Yeah, how was that rendition? That was from Carl Fabreski, aka Coral C. Now, as a young dig, he's rocked up to the battalion, and Sergeant Caswell, the greatest platoon sergeant in the universe.
There you go, team. There you go.
Still stand by it.
Yeah, still stand by it. Okay, with that out the way, okay, guys. It went for 2.5 hours. I don't want to give too much of that away. It was a real pleasure to be there. And Matty came in prepared, The studio was excellent. The sound condenser mics were great. The headphones, the setup, the lighting, the sound muffling, etc., was phenomenal. And that conversation went for 2 hours and 35 minutes. And I really think that if you treasure this podcast, In the Trenches with Kaz, you're going to get a lot out of going over and supporting Matty, because there are so many people on his podcast of Zero Limits, which at the moment, when I first heard that it was on Spotify, that was a bit of a turn off for me, because JRE, Joe Rogan, was who I used to listen to daily. But then I didn't want to go to a second application for that. So then I went to just the podcast app and I started to listen to Dan Carlin over and over and over again. But now Zero Limits is my go-to, because I believe that Matty is our Singaporean Sean Ryan. Fantastic guy. And I just wanted to do him some thanks by doing that now. Mr. Buccarini, I'll try to listen to that, Kaz. It actually turned out pretty well. And I've got to tell you, there is a little bit of anxiety and contemplation before you go into podcast, especially for someone who's had a career as long and as loud as what mine was. And what do I mean by that is, when you go onto a podcast and you're standing on your own 2 feet, what you say becomes gospel. You can't just take it back. Everything you talk about is potentially being listened to by those with irrational effect that might have seen things from an angle or an observation that they don't necessarily agree with what you said. So you've got to be very, very factual and avoid letting emotion overcloud the moment, and talk in a way that can either sell people out, etc. One of the things I told myself before going into a long form podcast like Matty's from Zero Limits was I wasn't going to drop names. I explain in the podcast, because I know so many fucking hundreds of people, that racism is fine when you're saying good things about the race you're talking about. It's only when you say something bad that it becomes a crime for some reason. You're only allowed to point out the good things, not the actual truth behind who you're talking about and the differentiations from different cultures, etc., and their weak points. Now, when you drop names of people, I see it the same way. If you're going to drop someone's name, but you drop a positive, affirmation about someone, then that's a good thing. But if it's a negative thing in a way that they can't rebuttal or defend themselves, then that makes it hard, and that can mean a battle starts on Facebook, whatever, innuendo, explain yourself, whatever. So the names I dropped on that were always good things about people, but they were always honest things. Yep. And there was a lot of people's names I would love to have dropped in a positive way, but it's not fair for me to drop someone's name if they haven't given me permission to do so. So I avoided naming the guys that are from my section in Rwanda, or the guys that worked for me in East Timors, or some of the bro ships that I had in the Middle East, etc. Yeah. Peppers. I'll have a look at it. Been a long time since I used Spotify. It works pretty well, to tell you the truth. Will.i.am, the referee, True Blue Conversation, is also a good podcast with Aussie vet being interviewed. I haven't heard of that one. Thank you very much, Will. T, listened to it this morning at work. Absolutely loved it. Well done, T. Thank you very much for that. Backpack-a-lack. What's up, guys? At the moment, mate, we're just doing a little bit of a refresher from the podcast I just got off with Matty a couple of weeks ago, in between being sick and having the most embarrassing day of my life, to just basically be able to say thank you through our platform to his, but also to give you guys the understanding, because I've been getting a little bit of questioning from people saying, when are you going to actually go on the Zero Limits podcast? And you just brought that up to me on a previous stream. And Matty and I had never crossed paths before, but now I'm glad I have, and I'd do anything to support his journey in whatever he's doing. Ultimately, my fantasy would be part of a 4-person or 3-person public speaking tour from veterans and a copper, and go around and speak about how we got to where we are, the importance of honesty, of testosterone in today's society, which seems to be getting pissed all over. You the skirt. Here you go, mate. I'll have to download Spotify. That sounds like an awesome listen. It was a really good podcast, I believe. And that was not necessarily from me, but because of Matty's control of the conversation, which was excellent. He says more with pauses. And it was great to run into you and your lovely partner the other day as you were getting ready to go and disembark and become aware of a uniform as well. Bravo, Charlie. The goat eyes. Exactly right. You know, when we talk about goat eyes, we're talking about people where there's nothing home culturally behind their eyes. Don't mess with them. Don't call them out. It ends badly. Tom Black, why would you name anyone? Because there's a lot of people that did great things that assisted you in a time where you were feeling the worst. You know, I've had officers that absolutely pulled me back from the brink and looked after me when I was in the worst predicament. I had diggers who, through their own perseverance and the way they fought through adversity, it taught me, even as a platoon sergeant, as an older man and a father, you know, that guy, you know, taught me by watching the way he dealt with adversity. That was excellent. You know, it's a way of saying thank you. You know, Mick Nation, one of the best female soldiers I've ever worked with in my life. She was the mother of all the soldiers on that Rwanda contingent. You know, it's not a me show. You know, if I can bring someone in and I believe that it's in a way that doesn't name or shame, then I'm quite happy to say thanks where it belongs. None of us are traveling by ourselves. And if we are, it's a lonely way to live. And T, get my enlistment date tomorrow. Kaz, I requested February the 12th. That's not far away. So fingers crossed to that date. T, I hope so, mate. Let me know if that's the case. Jesse Bell, was Matty the one who interviewed Ryan Shaw from 2RAR? Absolutely love that one. I'm not sure. I believe it would have been. Matty Morris. Brady, you don't need Spotify. I just Googled Zero Limits and it's up there. Yep, that's true too. Carl P. G'day, Kaz and team. G'day, Carl. Here you go, mate, with his brother underneath him. I hope that your studies are going well, mate. I hope you've made it to 51% of what needs to be done. Guardian 27. G'day, team. Hope you're all well. We're well, and I love the Coca-Cola emoji there, mate. James, hey, mate, I'm thinking of joining the Army Reserves next year in November when I'm 16. I don't know if I leave school or stay for year 12. Mate, don't get out to be a reservist. You know, get out because you're going to join the regular army. But again, 16 is too young, mate. Having said that, I wouldn't expect you to stay at 11 and 12, year 11 and 12, just to fail. You know, is it because of academia? You just don't feel stimulated by the lack of leadership that happens in our schooling system? Is that it? Or do you have an itchy feeling that you want to jump the nest and start early? Because you need to take your time, and passing that education curriculum gives you the best chance of getting into the military rather than face the hurdles later and have to go through TAFE and ultimately do the longest possible way of enlisting into the Australian Army. It is a fantastic career, but do it properly. Hit the brake every now and then, and remember, everything, you know, will come back to haunt you if you try to go too fast. Yeah. Mr. Buckarooty, folks, I worked with a lot of correctional officers that were in the Army with Kaz. Every one of them couldn't speak highly enough of this bloke. I wonder if it was because they owed me money. You know, you've got a famous author that used to work with you, and his name is Mark Lindsay, and I don't mind dropping his name because he's a public figure and author as well. Will.i.am Wakai, you see her on deployment now, not allowing swimming. Yep, strike one and more to follow. Many, many strikes. And that was funny when Matty said, yeah, I agree with you, your stance on dropping names, but he said, but by all means, drop Wakai. You know, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily criticize someone on their personal look, you know, but some big mistakes have happened. And one thing you may not realize that occurs in the army is prejudicial behavior is one of the biggest things that can get you charged or disciplinary action for bringing disrepute to the military or making it, tarnishing it in some way with the civilians. And I don't know who was tarnished the Australian Army more, okay, than Chief of the Defence Force, Angus Campbell. Yeah, not only has he dragged military into the court of public opinion, but everything has been negative. And the dropping of standards is unforgivable. It is. You know, because the people with no standards that get in through quota or whatever it is, eventually they will get quota command as well. And once they get quota command, then they'll start to look after their own, or they're the most brutal ones. It doesn't make sense. Jared, how you going, mate? Welcome to Great Unwashed. He's a sergeant now. Look at him there. Well done, mate. Tommy Black says, joining the army was the best thing I did. And that's great to hear. I absolutely love it. When anyone has ever said that they didn't want to join the army, and I've only heard that a couple of times ever, I start to want to dig into their history and go, well, no one else says that. What's the other side of the story, mate? And I hope that you're not trying to ruin other people's thoughts of a future in the military, Air Force, Army or Navy, because of your own experience. Yep. We just had a fella on Sunday go to RAF and he's going to be a pilot. So well done to that man. You know, and he had got to one stage 140 kilos and then lost that weight, met an awesome woman, had 2 kids, not him, she did. And then he made it through all of his testing, you know, and the cardio and the drop in the weight, no more fatty boomsticks, and now he's going to be a pilot. Well done. Section 60, says Mr. Buckaroony. Up to the bit where you're talking about Rwanda, Kaz. It's a bit of a hard-hitting one. I'll put a video on for you now so you get to see it. And it's separate to what we saw or what you'll be hearing in the podcast 158 with Zero Limits. But this will give you some context of the actual video. Some of you will have seen this before. It's a hard one. Hey, Bill, how you going there, Mr. Krask? This is a hard one, team, and it hurts me, but it's also therapeutic for me because it is important to have a voice of the things that hurt, to remind people that it actually happened, because otherwise, you know, people have died for no reason. So what we'll do now is watch a quick video, and I hope you actually appreciate. Wait. So this is a video I did to actually support a fella called Mick Rice, who had a multimedia site himself and was going to get into podcasting and videos. And I think he's dropped off a little bit. But this was a really, really hard video to make for him, and it really took me through the locker. And I use this sometimes when I do public speaking, as well as some of the poetry, to create the silence in the room when I'm around serious hombres. So even if Matty is watching this from Zero Limits, I hope you appreciate it. Rwanda, 1994, 1995. Kibeho, Nitarama Church, Kigali, hospitals, desperation, anxiety, smells, tastes, atrocities, immaturity, and innocence lost. God was not there. He doesn't meddle in the affairs of humans, but he watches on and he'll judge them tomorrow. Black lives did not matter in 1994 or 1995 because we had the opportunity to help and we didn't. Unimere 1, Unimere 2. the most expensive soldiers in the world to rent other than Canadians. Travelled to Rwanda, Central Africa. A population of 8 million whittled down to 7 million and about to go down further, while Australians watched on. Our rules of engagement were bullshit. Our aftercare of Rwanda has been bullshit. Have a pension, keep your mouth shut. Sorry for what you went through. I wrote a diary, so my memories are permanent. Bookended by who I used to be and who I am now. I always think of the 4 names that stick with me, because the places, anyone can remember that, you can visualise that, you can look that up. But I think of Bernadette, a beautiful little girl, completely innocent but crippled, who was in a hospital. I don't know what had happened to her. She didn't speak English. And she used to come down the machine gun pit and used to spend time with me. I used to give her candy. I used to give her mosquito repellent, the simple things. I used to show her the photo of the girl I was going home to marry in Australia, Vanessa Muller. I'm sorry it didn't work out. I come home a different guy. She was beautiful. She was such a memory. I named my daughter, who was born today, 10 years ago, after her. Aaliyah Mary Bernadette. Bernadette, I love you. And I hope that you are happy. I hope that you have children. And I hope that you have love at the table. And then there's Julius. Julius, a beautiful little boy from Uganda whose family had been murdered. And he'd fled to Rwanda, pot kettle, to get away. He was mercilessly bullied by the boys of Rwanda. I tried to get him out of there. I bought him a franchise, a $50. Well, I gave him the money, but I never saw him again. And in my mind, I hope that he fled to somewhere safe to get away from his abusive uncle. A lovely little boy. If you're out there now, Julius, I still think about you every day. And now it gets grim. Amalia, a little girl whose name I had to give to a face that I can't remember, that is now hazy. And all I want to do is remember it. A little girl who had lost her life to fully grown adult men, machete, gun, boot. She was too slow to get away. Myself and Bluey, we carried her. That was a Cabello. It was too late for that little girl, but I still think about her and who she could have been. This used to be a car spring, turned into a weapon of war, used against civilians by militia. Black lives didn't matter, and God was not there at Cabello or Rwanda. That's a guarantee. One thing that was there, but was gum trees. So you felt like it was all happening in Australia. That leaves us with Grace, one of my saddest memories. And she was a little girl about 3 years old that was hugging onto her father. And as our column left Cabello for the second day of just my section within the platoon, with the rear protection, I remember all the bodies, all the digging, all the blood, all the rain. And this little girl was in the Badlands. There was no help coming, or it could have, but our rules of engagement said no. Grace's father was dying in the mud. She had nowhere to go. We had eye contact, we shared a moment that has now lasted forever. As we drove away and I locked gaze with her, I knew there was no happy ending. And I dare say Grace is gone. Cabello, Rwanda, it doesn't have happy memories for me. I've written poems about it. I've shared stories with it. But black lives didn't matter, and God was not present. And regrets, we should all have them, because Australia, I believe, did not represent ourselves very well. United Nations, it is your fault. You could have done better, but you didn't. Love and respect to the people of Rwanda. I know how you do it, and every day I remember to remember. Thanks, Mick, for giving me this opportunity. See you later. Yes. So Tim, that is basically, it gets me to there, Cal. And if we can get some thumbs up there for Grace, Amalia, Bernadette, and Julius, that'd be appreciated because they mattered. They did, and they mattered to me. And here we are about to have the 30th anniversary coming up. And that's basically the 23rd of April, I think it is, of the genocide. And it is important to remember. And it doesn't matter if a conversation is painful. It doesn't matter if it hurts. It's about remembering. It's about understanding that people in foreign countries that are going through things through no fault of their own are being killed by politics daily. And the soldier doesn't go there because he wants to hurt people. The soldier goes there because it's part of the adventure, the mission, okay, but it's also part of the solution. People say, but men start wars. You go, no. Men go to the scream in the night. And remember, a war only happens when politicians have already failed at communicating. That's a fact, Jack. That's a lot of black hands there, Mr. Buckaroony. You know, you grow a lot as you get older and things will stay with you. So always check what you're going to do. You know, look at the friends that you have. Be careful of peer pressure, you know, because you might be carrying the mantle for the rest of your life because of the actions that you choose to do. But at the same time, to be part of history, to be part of something that mattered, to be able to be in a position where we could say Rwanda was an abject failure, okay, other than to catalogue what happened, okay, on sub-Saharan Africa, you know, in what was supposed to be the jewel of Africa, Rwanda, smaller than Tasmania, with a very fertile population. It's important that we talk about it. Yikes, that was a good podcast on Zero Limits. Thanks, Yikes. It was an absolute honor for me to be invited onto that. And it allows you to see that there's more to just what I try to deliver to you or why I do what I do in that fact, because I could quite easily be sitting back doing nothing, watching my share portfolio diminish by the day as it has been. $6,000 day we went down today. It was painful. That was a great podcast. Thank you. So the question is, what subject defines your life? What could you talk about as a long format? Is there anything at the moment? Is there something you want to do? Eventually be able to be in a position where you can communicate about your life, your immersion in history making? You know, because it would be tragic to be able to look back on a life as a post 50-year-old man or woman and be able to say, no, nothing in particular. My life has not been remarkable. You have the opportunity when you're young to make it remarkable. And that's by being on a team which is about action, the path of less trodden. You know, forge your way like the explorer, like the sea captain. More than 1 million of them are on the bottom of the ocean because they thought their leadership was enough to defeat the storm, yet they took their team down with them. So that's why leadership is so important. Superannuation's going backwards as well. I bet it is, man. You know, I believe that this is the generation of the tradie. I think the tradie is going to be in a really good position unless they get railroaded by a larger company, for the simple fact that when you can put brawn and hard work behind the construction of something that our society needs, while a record amount of people are unwilling to sweat or leave air conditioning, that makes you a commodity in itself from an HR perspective. So I believe that the tradies are really going to bring it home. And that's a good one too. Well, Wingnut, never ever think that you're going to retire in this lifetime. And I can tell you from someone who is retired, there isn't really that much advantage to being retired other than taking your child to school, picking your child up after school. It's a very lonely life to not be able to communicate with your herd anymore. Breathe through your balls. Lots of boys at school are dropping out and getting apprenticeships. Yep. Maybe this is the start of the pendulum swinging back and people understand that university hasn't been elite enough. You know, they're allowing courses that are not required by society to run, despite the fact there is no jobs in that said field. Let's look at the hives in the world. If I can't get in the army, I'll potentially become an electrician. Backpacker lack, do you know what I'd do? I reckon I'd go and be, if I couldn't get in the army, I would consider being an abalone diver, off north and east coast. That would be fantastic. A little bit dangerous, but not as dangerous as South Australia. Big money on the ocean, fantastico. You're not going to eat your supply because I reckon abalone looks like it tastes like shit. Oh, okay, Tommy Black was saying about lies, yep. Dave D, university only creates socialists. Yep. We've got so many people at university that are part of our channel that are leaving in droves despite the fact that they're going to have a hex bill because they're saying that when they went in there, it's absolutely not what they thought they were getting themselves in for. And the bias, the left-leaning bias they're even getting in Australian universities is absurd, not to mention the people on campus. We've also got a guy from our channel who's currently overseas at the moment, and he gets back at the start of February. That's been doing a kickboxing camp over in Thailand. So he's been gone for a couple of months now. I can't wait to get a photo of his shins. Breathe through your balls. I want to live to my fullest purpose until I die. Yeah, man. Yep, absolutely. I can see where when my daughter gets a little bit older, when I'm not looking after mum and dad, who I'm so lucky to still have in their 80s, and going over and doing a lot of time in either the Philippines, Thailand, or Vietnam. And it's got nothing to do with passport bro sort of shit. It's got to do with the lack of fun police over there, living a life with street food, swimming daily, not needing a car, just walking around in thongs, shorts, and a singlet for the rest of your life. I reckon it'd be great. Arian, you reckon Reddit is accurate about infantry? I haven't really looked at Reddit, mate, because when you get on there, it just seems like a negative rant by people that either haven't gone there yet that have 100 opinions or people just talking shit. Just remember what infantry actually is. Yeah, I've been to Bali, breathe through your balls. I don't like Bali much, to tell you the truth, Yeah. So just remember, infantry is about seek out and close the enemy to kill or capture him, to seize and hold ground, to repel attack by day and night, regardless of season, weather, or terrain. So when anyone has an opinion on infantry and army, the first question you should ask them, have you served? Because if they haven't served, they're speaking through their ass. And then if they talk about infantry and they've never been in infantry, then they're talking through their ass. There's only two real Australian channels that are helping anyone at the moment, and they're both from infantry. 3RAR, Matty Morris, and 2nd Battalion, Dean Caswell from In the Trenches with Kaz. Where are all the RAFI's channels? Where are all the Navy's channels? Where are all the Pogues channels, all the support company channels, all the support corps channels? They don't exist. The people who are trying to help you are infantry. And when you get past the HR of a job application, they're more than happy to have you in their call sign because they know you're about the team. Yep. Dominic, that's a good name. Hey, legend, I got accepted for direct entry for Commandos, yes, and received my interview dates. And I'm wondering is it better idea to be a regular lid for a while, then go into the section, or just go for it? To tell you the truth there, Senior Dominic Fletcher, what I'd fully recommend is that you get onto the column below, the remarks in comments, and go down there and get on Patreon, mate, so that in the next few days we can have a conversation, and we'll have an in-depth conversation about the pros and cons of going for direct entry commandos as opposed to doing your time fermenting in a rifle company, getting transferable skill sets in support company within the battalion, whether that be from snipers, reconnaissance, or surveillance, or whether it be heavy weapons, and then going for your traveling roadshow for special forces and deciding, is it commandos I want or is it S.A.S.R? So that's what my recommendation would be for you. 5-7. There you go. It's going to be back to 5-7, isn't it, Tommy? Leland, Kaz, even known Kapuka is dropping the standards, do you think battalion standards will get them up? Absolutely. You won't have a choice. The politics stops after Kapuka. There's a little bit of politics at the School of Infantry for quotas, etc. But other than that, the rubber meets the road, man. When you get to the battalion, there's no politics anymore. Okay, you go outfield, you finish the job, or your reputation might as well be in the toilet. A good soldier is not the best shot. It's not the fittest guy in the platoon. It's someone who is at least halfway in the mid-water for fitness, and someone who completes every single activity. I'll give you an example. Until the last year that I was in my discharge processes, I basically didn't have a day off in 24 years for sickness. Yep. Now I seem like I'm in hospital all the time. Zulal, hey, mate, born and raised in the Philippines. Good on you, mate. I'm joining and just need to pass my AGS VA. Any idea how non-Australians are treated inside defence? They're treated exactly the way they treat everyone else, mate. If you come in, and it doesn't matter what colour your skin is, it doesn't matter if you're Islamic, it doesn't matter if you're Christian, it doesn't matter if you're Buddhist. If you come in there and you're a good soldier, you've got a good sense of humour, and you finish everything you start, then you're going to be fine, absolutely fine. We need everyone to be accepted who is a good individual. Again, if people come in there with a sense of entitlement, if people come in there victim mentality, it might not be a good fit. So you come in there, and I know the Philippines come from a very, very strong warrior background. So you might have an outside advantage, to tell you the truth, my friend. And I wish you the best. I'll try out for Commandos after a few years. Backpacker-lack, yep. And you may even go for S.A.S.R, mate. Robbie the Wall. G'day, buddy. Peppers. Kaz speaks more to the volume of the level of character of the content creators than the cores themselves. Kaz, but that's my opinion. Kaz speaks more to the volume of the level of character of the content creators than the core themselves. That sounds too intellectual for me, Peppers. I'm trying to translate it. But Carl seems to get it. Rock up on time too, of course. Yeah, you can't be late. Arian, how do you reduce the risk of injury for when carrying around stuff? Just carry it properly, mate, and accept the fact that, like a UFC fighter, almost every infantry soldier, as a matter of fact, most soldiers, especially in combat corps and engineers, you're always injured anyway, and no one wants to hear about it. We've all got injuries. We just get on with the job. Yeah. What are we? Win 3 balls, yes. And holy hell, Peppers, you have to have a dark sense of humor from the mates I know that have served. Absolutely. And some of the darkest humor is the funniest, man. Some of the shit that makes you go, whoa, is the best. Ms. Bucker and Kaz, do you know if Commando and S.A.S.R selection has been combined? I think there might be a combined course at the start, like a what would you call it? Like a barrier test again, but I don't know for sure, mate, to tell you the truth. Tell stories of hard-hitting NCOs. Back to your point, why infantry are wanting to help lads through the social media, because the corps loves their soldiering compared to the minority of the other corps, I notice. It's probably because they do the real hard yards as well, and teamwork and mateship is one of the core tenets of infantry, because we don't necessarily have particular bits of equipment that keep us segregated based on a job. It seems like it's more about we roll as a hunting party, and when you've only got to look after your own rifle and your own equipment and your own fitness and be on time and finish everything you start, it gives us some extra time to have a sense of humor. It's just like being in a sports team. Dave Johnson. Okay, Kaz, listen to your episode today. Just wanted to thank you for sharing your stories. They were good and interesting. Thanks, Dave. Thanks. I was a little bit nervous that with my veteran brothers that I didn't get over the skates and say anything that might have also compromised them or saw things from a perspective that they didn't see. But from all the feedback so far, they're pretty happy with the way I represented them today. So that's a good thing. Dave D, barrier testing and selection, yes, Buck. I believe Rio cycle is where it diverges. Absolutely. Jacob, about time I catch it. Yeah, you caught me. I'm not hard to catch, to tell you the truth. Breathe through your balls. I understand that S.A.S.R. and 2 Commando Regiment have different mission roles and are equally as deadly, but in regards to training, which is more difficult? I'd say S.A.S.R. You know, I see that Commandos is where I'd rather be than S.A.S.R. But that's just me because I'm louder and I want it to be about fitness and I want it to be about the hard-hitting sledgehammer. Whereas S.A.S.R., quieter. I think it's an evolution of maturity from Commandos to S.A.S.R., etc. I don't see S.A.S.R. as naturally a stepping stone from infantry. I see them as an isolated, standalone organisation, which is the best of the best for a reason. Whereas I see Commandos as basically infantry on steroids, larger organisations led by a more experienced officer. Yep. And I think both of them are basically very dependent on implied tasks, not needing to get told what to do, understanding what happens between the lines, how to be ready for the mission before you're actually told, can you do something that's already done? You know, doing the little things well. Blank, g'day, mate. David Thomas, the way I see it, Kaz, is that the entire Defence Force is only there to support us grunts. Well, that's pretty much the truth. But I'd say it's more combined arms, you know, infantry, artillery, and armoured corps, because that is the tenets of manoeuvre warfare, isn't it? You know, speed, lethality, survivability, etc. C3, command, control, and communications. We need it all. Commandos are the brute force, S.A.S.R. agile, many-faceted force. It's true, but they're also capable of being the hardest hitters on the battlefield too, with the assets that get given to them that don't necessarily get given to an infantry battalion, etc. Joshy Simpson, what Patreon tier should I join? I'd like to have a one-on-one chat with you. Just go to the Black Legion, Josh. If you go to the Black Legion, that's got no upper cap to it. And we'll be painting a miniature of you real soon as well. Jesse Bell, Rio Cycle is definitely a boon for infantry battalions. Personally, I was lucky enough to have a lot of NCOs and even officers who were commando trained. It made us better, much better. Yep. What I'd say on it is, I spoke to Matty about this and he looked at me with a pause for a moment where I tried to explain one of the biggest and most damaging things of the Royal Australian Regiment actually is Commandos and S.A.S.R. What I mean by that is our infantry representation is so small considering the population of our country, 27 million, and there's like less than 10,000 regular infantry. That's inexcusable. As our population's gone up, our military hasn't. And now as the standards of the human within Australia have lowered, now we're trying to get them into the military with the worst recruiting scheme we've ever had. But when you've got a small organisation, but you've got two very, very elite forces such as Commandos and S.A.S.R, what that means is there's every time that someone starts to stand up and stand out in a platoon, because I believe that the greatest leadership is often down at the lowest level, you know, sometimes without responsibility, then what happens is that individual then gets poached by Commandos or S.A.S.R, and we keep losing our poppies, so to speak. They keep cutting them off so that where they do the best good, becoming the best commanders, you know, reluctant commanders, you know, leading by example through support company courses, promotions, or time in the rifle companies themselves, we end up losing them to special forces. And rather than just SAS taking them like they used to, now we've got Commandos as well, and they need a continual flow of the best of our best, which means that, you know, we lose some of the character, well, most of the real characters of the backbone of the Royal Australian Regiment, and we need them. We need them. Backpacker-lack, I don't understand why more people don't want to join. They don't see soldiers. You know, they get told, why would you do that? They have people that actually believe there's no qualifications for being in an arms corps, infantry, etc. There absolutely is. And that's why there's people like Matty Morris from Zero Limits. That's why there's Dean Caswell from In the Trenches with Kaz. We're trying to highlight to you that it's a different life, and it's a fucking great life. And one day you could have a collective amount of stories that allows you to go on a podcast where 90% of civilians probably couldn't have the content to go onto a podcast and be able to talk long form and try to bring what could be a 5-6 hour conversation down to just a measly 2.5 hours without a break. Hardest course in the army, Brady, no one ever passed. What is it? Yep, I saw that, Bucko. Russia losing about 1,000 people a day. It's absolutely heartbreaking. 100% enemy is leadership. So many officers. I think they do. I think they do give a shit at the start. I think they get broken down by the system. Yeah. The best officers you see are always up and coming thrusting officers down the bottom. And if you ask them when they get to major and above, they'll always say that the best times they ever had was when they were a platoon commander, when they were a company commander, never a captain. You know, when I say we've got too many officers, I mean above the rank of major, not below, which if they extend the rank time of lieutenants, so they're a lieutenant longer, you know, you learn to be a good commanding officer by being a bloody good platoon commander. So let them spend more time as a lieutenant, you know, and as a major within a field posting, you know, as a company commander, and they're going to be a bloody great commanding officer. When they've lived in the trenches with the soldiers, they understand what the soldiers go through, the trials and tribulations. They're not there for a quick time, you know, just to benefit their political career after army, you know, or within army. Then, you end up loving your platoon commander. An example of that is the first year, you don't normally like your platoon commander very much. He comes in wanting to change the world. But once he gets comfortable inside his boots, then all of a sudden we're upset to see him go. Now, I've had nearly tears in my eyes when I've said goodbye to the money offered to stay. Absolutely, I would. And I'd put that in the share market too. Yep, absolutely. Peppers, should there be a limit on the moment between the cores, Kaz, or would that hinder more than help? Should there be a limit on movement between? There already is a limit, Peppers. You don't see core enlistments basically happen at all, pretty much. And if you go from a high priority core, they're not going to allow you to go, for example, electronic warfare and then go and join infantry. They're not going to let you do that. They're not going to let you go as an aircraft mechanic within the rotary wing of the aviation corps, and then go, no, I want to put the tools down, all that training, and I want to go and be infantry. They're not going to let you do that either. Tropical salt, definitely more time as lieutenant for most, and I reckon they'd love it too in the long run. Kaz wanted to be a hairdresser, but it was full and ended up infantry. It's true. It's true. The system doesn't support the officer. The officer then doesn't have the faith to rule the unit. Then it's left to the sergeants to pick up the pieces. It is a difficult friendship and relationship between platoon sergeants and platoon commanders, especially if the platoon sergeant is also not confident in what his role is, or the platoon commander is expecting that platoon sergeant to be a clerk instead of the experience and the dad of that organisation. I explained to Julius Caesar today that I see the platoon commander as the captain on the football field, so to speak, but the actual coach is the platoon sergeant. What do we got there? Hey, Josh, well done. Welcome, mate. I'll send you a message in a moment. More than 120 senior staff officers' positions think that they need to trim the numbers, Kaz. Absolutely. Get rid of 2/3 of them. Vas, cool. Mate, I'm living in Australia for 15 years. I'm a permanent resident. I did all the recruiting processes, but couldn't get the job in the army. Just simply haven't got Australian citizenship. Once you get that citizenship, mate, you should be okay. As long as you can speak English well and you can write it well, you should be fine. Daddy Sarge saving us. That's right. Call me daddy. Righto, team. We're going to get out of here now. DDF or didn't help, DFA, you mean? Didn't help the process to expedite my citizenship process. I'm really interested to work with the ADF. Just get with it, man. You know, keep it up. And that's what she said. And so many people, man, so many people think that they're fighting against a brick wall, and all of a sudden the results come in and then they're happy. So don't give up on yourself. Perso got lucky in Turrial with platoon commanders, both who started as ORs or straight to Duntroon. Great to catch a Kaz. You too, Jessie Bell. And Jessie's a great name. Okay, blank. Too many people join without proper English skills, which is hard in an organisation that relies on communication. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean written? Written? I think the Army puts too much on written skills. You know, a minute is only meant to take a minute. You know, paperwork, as long as it's legible and I can understand it, it should take that long, and it shouldn't matter if it's messy. The most important thing is that I'm outside with the troops doing the training, you know, and keeping them motivated. And when they don't need something, they're in between actual deployments or training, knock them off, send them home, you know, but then hold them accountable for their fitness. And if they don't finish an actual hit out in the field environment leading up to the next war that they're always training for. Zulu, Kaz, love your work, mate. You'll hear from me when I get the loo. All the best. Fantastic, mate. And I look forward to hearing from you, the Philippine Lion. White Mass. This may not make sense, but how does a person like the Chief of the Army have so many medals if they hasn't been any recent war since Afghanistan? Because officers have medals for officers, mate. You know, Order of Australia, etc. You'd expect him to get medals for different positions, etc. The fact that he wanted to take medals off actual combatants is a disgrace, regardless of what his reasons were, and he should have been the first to lose his own. Yeah, I get you. But then again, I've had people come and ask me how come I've got so many medals too. You know, as long as you can explain to them that each one is named after a girl that could have married you at one stage, they tend to look at you funny and then off they go. So if I could wrap this up today, what I'd like to say is it was an absolute privilege to be with Matty, you know, on Zero Limits podcast. It's hashtag 158. All you need to do is type into Google Zero Limits podcast 158. You'll see it at the top. It's on Instagram as well. And then just follow the link. You know, I'd be interested in seeing what you think about it. And let's get behind this great Singaporean, Aussie treasure that we have. And that's a great question too. When you said before, well, what happens to people that are from overseas when they go and join Australia? Well, Matty is an absolute man mountain, and he came from Singapore, you know, good looking guy, big guy, successful guy, and he's out here helping you. So that goes to show you it ain't the cut of, it is the cut of your jib. But it's not the color of your skin. You know, it's what comes out of your mouth, and it's also what you do to help the team. Yeah. All right, guys, let's get out of here. And thank you for listening tonight. And I've got 3 days of looking after my daughter before we get ready for Australia Day, which is Australia Day is every day as far as I'm concerned. Remember, in this lifetime, never be the victim unless it's from a shark or biting animal. Never get a tattoos of anything Chinese or what else was it? Chinese or dragons, because dragons don't exist. And guys and gals, I'm here to help you to help yourself in the absence of understanding where to go. And so is Matty from Zero Limits. So guys, let's keep it together. Let's be stoked. Let's not get down when people don't understand your mission. And I still call Australia home. I do. Happy Australia Day, Eric. Absolutely. MPs given tickets for driving 42 kilometres on base. Then I would have got one for running too fast. See you later, guys. See you later, Mr. Buckaroony, and to all of those in Townsville, potentially in harm's way, you know, batten down the hatches because the cyclone's coming. All right. See you later. See you, team. Get a boxing kangaroo. There you go.